What are the things that they could be doing to prevent that horrible injury as well?
So long story short, more agility. They show even strength training doesn't really do it. Traditional old school weightlifting, like just
Really?
squats and deadlifts, those are good compound movements that will build up cartilage. It'll build up the bone density. But as far as the ligaments and what the ligaments do and changing directions and positions, it doesn't have a preventative aspect of strength. And there's a certain point where if you're so weak, yes, you have a risk factor, but then there's a certain level of strength where most people will have. That's the point where the risk factor is, it's not as much of a strength thing. It is more of a agility training, different position thing.
Interesting.
Step into the world of FC Game Changer, the football club that will change your game. We want to help boost your mindset, strength, and nutrition. A potent trio capable of completely transforming both your football performance and your overall life.
The way we play it, the way we say it.
With a new expert every month, including strength coaches, nutritionists, football coaches, former and current footballers. We are dedicated to sharing knowledge and skills for the next generation of footballers, allowing you to become the best footballer you can be. Thanks for joining us today. Now, let the game begin.
Welcome to the show, Matt Minard.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here with you.
Yeah, I'm super excited for this. I think the audience is going to get a lot of value from, everything that you have to tell us. But before we get into things, for people that don't know you, tell us your story and who is Matt Minard?
So I am physical therapist by trade, but I've always known that I wanted to do something in healthcare. I've always been into sports and been injured a lot. I think that was God's way of letting me be empathetic and be firsthand experience what a lot of people go through so I can be empathetic. But long story short, I always knew I wanted to do something healthcare, always enjoyed working out, sports. But then I had a baseball injury and had to have surgery, and that kind of ended my pitching baseball career. I don't want to call it a career, but that ended that for me, and that led me towards physical therapy. So then I went to physical therapy, and then that's kind of when I knew I was a junior in high school that's what I wanted to be. And I'm lucky that it's a career that's ever evolving, it's ever learning. Like everybody has a body, and just like everybody will experience normal things throughout their life. It depends on when they experience those, how they experience them. And that's my job, is to try to help guide people the best I can through firsthand experience, but also through knowledge and working with people over time.
Yeah. No, this is great because most of us, soccer players, that is the number one thing. It's an injury that sometimes we can't recover from, and then the career is over. And for the audience here, you have high schoolers, you have college players, and at the college level, depending on your situation, for example, if you have a full ride, right, or if you have some sort of scholarship, that could ruin, right, the scholarship, the soccer career, and then we're pretty much lost. So let's jump right into the injury prevention and things that you see the most with, athletes in general, but also soccer players. What are the most common injuries that you see with soccer players?
Yeah, I think back, especially when I was in, high school and back in the day in gym class, they always taught, static stretching, like lengthening muscles out before activity. And then I think finally, whether it's research-based or time caught up, they realized that does more harm than good. And that actually static stretching before exercise can actually temporarily make the muscles weaker, and some of the muscle spindles that try to kind of guard and protect from excess torque or getting injured, those are kind of dampened after stretching. So they found that actually lengthening and stretching muscles before activity, especially soccer and hamstrings, actually increase the risk of hamstring injuries. And it's more about dynamic like warm up. And you probably heard that before, static versus dynamic.
Yeah.
Static is where we're holding, lengthening a muscle. Dynamic is where we're moving within available range, but not spending too much time at the end. And just like a car you haven't driven in a long time, you want to warm it up first. You don't want to just pull it out of the pedal down to the floor. So it depends on the sports, depends on the activity, having some kind of warm up and framing it that way of warming up versus stretching. I think that helps to put things into perspective. And then it depends on the sport, whether it's soccer, where it's multi-directional. I'm just thinking from a biomechanics, physics, anatomy standpoint, what muscles are being used, how are we using them? How can we make sure that the first time they go to use these muscles isn't in a high stress situation where they're going to exert themselves more than their body is able to at that moment. And that's where injuries occur. So I think the big thing is just trying to get warming up versus after games, after exercising. That's where that static hold, that lengthening is a lot more beneficial. Our muscles, when we use them, when we contract, they shorten. And then we relax, they come back to the original position. If we're constantly contracting and shortening, if we do that thousands of times during a game, then if we don't spend a little bit of time afterwards to lengthen them, then we can have some adaptive shortening over time. And so soccer players notoriously with their quads will get really, really tight to the point where it can even affect how much their knee bends. It can affect their spinal mobility. And then not only is developing power and strength, we also need range of motion to be able to do that too. So what we don't want is to become stiff and not agile. So making sure that we have a good healthy mix of warming up the tissues before, static stretching afterwards, and then there are some things that we know you can't prevent, but with soccer, it is a lot of the ACL we see, a lot of the knee issues, a lot of changing of directions. Believe it or not, a lot of them are non-contact where nobody hit them or slide tackled them, but they actually were just quickly changing directions. And a lot of times it is, younger and through development as their body continues to grow at a faster rate than their nervous system can really learn how to control that. That's where stuff can happen sometimes. So long story short, soccer, a lot of knees, a lot of adductor musculature issues. I had a guy the other day that had an adductor injury from soccer. And it's always interesting to see is it the plant leg, if they're right leg dominant, is it their left leg or is it their right leg? And then that will kind of, with whether it's rehab, getting them back to baseline or performance, just thinking from that standpoint of what kind of drills or what kind of work are we doing to try as much as possible replicate the demands during the sport.
Wow. That's something that I think not just the athletes, but the coaches, especially for the young athletes, I see a lot of coaches telling them to do static stretches before training, before games, and they do the same. They do the static stretches after training, after games. But what you're telling us here right now is that do the static stretches after the activity, but warm yourself up prior to the training, prior to the game, to prevent injuries. Yeah. Is that correct? Yeah. So
and there's kind of like how much stress the body can take before it has this zone. Like my shirt, I can pull it so much before it actually starts to tear. And maybe different shirts that I wear can actually stretch different amounts. Everything has a limit. And where we get into trouble is if we don't warm up, sometimes that limit of how much the tissues, being muscles, ligaments, tendons, even bones, how much stress they can take. If you don't warm up beforehand, there's the window or your rate can potentially occur at a different time. And that's where you've probably seen with difference of temperature and injuries and like time of the day and people are dehydrated. So really when it's cold and not warmed up is where how much stress and load and force and torque the body can take is dependent on how much it's warmed up.
Wow. So yeah, warm up prior. Your cool down could be coupled with, static stretches. That's the best strategy then.
Yeah.
And like you're saying, is that for, all ages from the high schooler all the way, let's say, to the professional level? Is that for across the board?
Yeah, it's definitely all ages. It's just you can get away with it a lot more when you're younger, when the tissues and the body is a lot more agile. And then as you'll always hear people when they get old, oh, I got to warm up now. Like, well, we always really do need to warm up, but you can get away with it when you're younger. And just how humans and people are is we don't usually do stuff that takes more time unless there's a reason to, whether it's an injury or something that stops us. But there comes a point where you have to warm up before exercising when you get a certain age. And so it's the same body, same anatomy, same everything. It's just a younger version where it just didn't take quite much to warm up, but still just having some kind of warm up before is good for anybody. And that's where there's a risk with everything. Some people could be fine. They could go their whole life without having any issues. And some people are more injury prone and some people right in the middle. But I think as coaches trying to prevent as much as possible or structure the workouts or the training in such a way that does try to limit the exposure or the risk of injuries.
No, that's interesting that you mentioned ACL per se, because myself, I've suffered from 2 back to back, and I was in college, and that, I think, in my opinion, was one. I came from Brazil, so Brazil is much more technical, not so much physical. So I don't think I was quite ready to receive the physicality and the amount of load here in the US. So it happened in my freshman season. Playing, I think it was 2 games before the playoffs, and it was exactly what you said. It was non-contact. 1v1, tried to take the guy on, foot got stuck, my body just pushed, the ACL just went, and I tore. And then 6 months later, after I got cleared to start kind of training again, tore again. But second surgery, the doctor told me that the first one was an error. They tried to do something with me to get me back playing faster, in a faster pace, because I did have a full ride, but that didn't work. They mixed cadaver with my hamstring. So then my second doctor just said, let's not do that. Let's do your patella tendon. It's going to be stronger. You might have a harder time recovering from that, but long-term is going to be better for you. Never had any issues since, right? Still play, not at the same level anymore. I'm 35. And going back to what you said in terms of warming up, yes, I do have to warm up nowadays. Otherwise, clunky, rusty, my body takes so much more time to get in the groove, to play. So yeah, that's I'm living that right now too. But going back to the ACL, since you said it's one of the most common injuries, what is the root cause, right? Because when it's not contact, right, there's nothing you can do when it's contact, because it's just, it happens, the impact or something like that. What can the athletes do to help prevent that? You already mentioned warming up and then doing the static stretches after. What are the things that they could be doing to prevent that horrible injury as well?
Yeah, the ACL is one of those things that probably billions of dollars over the several decades have been poured into it. And there's still so much that I think we're still having a higher rate of incidents than any of us would like. So it's still really a big challenge. And there's a huge difference between males and females. And there's factors that we can mention that you can't control, but there are things that you can control. As far as things you can't control, they show there's differences in like that failure rate. Like if you took your ACL out and took somebody else's out and attached to some machine that would provide 100 pounds of stress, maybe one person's would be fine and be resilient and the other person's would start to tear. There's differences in how many fibers, the orientation, how thick is it, the notch of where the ACL even goes in the femur. Some people have different shells or different densities of the notch too. People's biomechanics with their femur length, the torsion. So there's so many, even hydration levels. Women on their period, they can have a higher failure rate.
Really?
The hips being wider than men because of the angle that the femur comes down. Like, so as far as what can we control, what we cannot control, there's if you want to go down a rabbit hole, there's all sorts of things that we, from a genetic standpoint and even from difference in gender standpoint, of that we can't control that are predispose you to ACL. But as far as what we can control, the best we can they show like jump training, plyometrics, where it's just getting your body used to changing directions, used to accelerating, used to decelerating, used to changing positions, because our ligaments like our body, we have all our bones. That's like our framework. And then our muscles are our movers. They're what create all kind of movement. And how we move is muscles insert into the bones, and where they insert, that's the tendon. But then what keeps the bones together is the ligaments. That's like duct tape that keeps bones together. Their job is to control excess movement, is to keep things together, is to allow some play, some give and play with different planes of movement. And so if someone's not used to really playing or moving in different directions, side to side, twisting, turning, if most of our daily life we just walk, we just move forward, and then if we go into a sport where we are cutting a lot, that's where the risk can go up. So that's something you can train for, is doing a lot of kind of ACL prehab. They have preventative, plyometrics, jump training, because a lot of times in basketball, it is more from the jumping. There's less jumping in soccer, that there is more cutting. So it is more changing of directions than it is leaving the ground and moving higher. So sports specific for soccer, it could be more working on agility stuff, cutting, changing directions. And again, just nothing too fancy, but just making sure that the first time that you experience those high amounts of movements or forces isn't during a game when your mind is going to be elsewhere. You've got other things on your mind. You might not be as preventative. It might be as protective. So yeah. So long story short, more agility. They show even strength training doesn't really do it. Traditional old school weightlifting, like just squats and deadlifts. Those are good compound movements that will build up cartilage. It'll build up the bone density. But as far as the ligaments and what the ligaments do and changing directions and positions, it doesn't have a preventative aspect of strength. And there's a certain point where if you're so weak, yes, you have a risk factor, but then there's a certain level of strength where most people will have. That's the point where the risk factor is, it's not as much of a strength thing. It is more of a agility training, different position thing.
Interesting. Wow. So that's good to know, because even myself, I always thought that, strengthen, to strengthen, like you said, the musculature, bone density, and also that it strengthens the ligaments as well. And I don't pay attention too much to plyometric as injury prevention, ACL specific prevention. But that's good to know. That's good to know for, my own trainings, and also for the audience as well, for those only thinking that I should squat, I should split squat, I should, deadlift and do things like that, push this lead, pull this lead. Also adding on plyometrics will be beneficial for those types of injuries. That's good to know. That's good to know. One thing that you keep saying that I want to pick your brain is, you've mentioned, I think twice, hydration. How does that play a role in injury prevention, but also performance as well? Let's add hydration and nutrition as well.
Yeah, hydration, it's one of those things as far as like, what is most of our body made up of? It's fluid, it's water, and we need fluid and water. And if you ever have the chance to go to medical school or physical therapy school where we work with cadavers or people that are no longer with us, they are stiff, things don't move. So we need hydration when life is fluid. Really what it boils down to is oxygen, and getting oxygen throughout our body and our blood. And we need, if we're not hydrated, if we're dehydrated, if we don't have enough fluid in our system, everything kind of starts to shut down. The body will kind of prioritize your quads and your legs aren't that important as your brain or your heart. So it starts shunting and getting more blood to where it needs to go. Or long story short, dehydration, there's so many different injuries or illnesses, or I've been hospitalized before where I thought I was dying or something exploded in my stomach and I was just dehydrated. I was just sweating like crazy, not rehydrating. And I could have sworn it was something else, but once getting some fluid back in my body, it was a whole different person. So there's like pathological, like fluid, where there's, I guess, again, we're in the rehab world versus performance. In physical therapy, we do both, trying to rehab, get people that are injured back to baseline, but also we are interested in, but we don't spend as much time on performance of evolving you, getting you stronger, getting you faster. But so there's always kind of like a medical baseline aspect to it and a performance. So from a medical and a baseline standpoint, if you're dehydrated, that's where things start to cramp. You just can't function when you're not well hydrated. It's not just water, the body's ability to absorb water. And that's where the electrolytes and all that kind of stuff comes into play. But they show too, though, it can affect just our body's level of stiffness, of how rigid is it, how mobile are we if you are dehydrated. So but also hydrating, there is a point of being more hydrated than you need doesn't do anything either. So there is a fine line. And I think we're getting better with wearables and technology of just trying to track like what is the optimal amount of water that we need. And if you sweat, how should we try to replenish that? But yeah, I think our nutrition and our drinking and our water, our hydration, they're kind of like baseline things that we assume need to be available for the body. That, like a car, like, yes, it needs fuel. And well, if it doesn't have fuel, then it's not going to run. It doesn't matter if the carburetor or the engine, like if it doesn't have that. So it's kind of like we need that as a baseline to even function. And so the hydration and nutrition are those kind of fine tuning of what is the fuel that we're putting into the body? How are we using it? Do we have enough of it? That kind of a thing.
Wow, that's very interesting. I wasn't aware of the importance. I knew, but you mentioned something too in terms of it's not just water, right? It's the sodium, the electrolytes, and all of that stuff. No, that's good for everyone to listen to. And in terms of the electrolytes and sodium, is there something that you recommend for someone that's like listening and watching right now? They're like, oh wow, this is extremely important for me to perform better, but also to prevent future injuries. Is there anything that you recommend?
I mean, there's a whole product in the industry and all that. I don't have any one specific product or kind that I think is any better than the other. I mean, they even show of just putting salt in your, like, not salt, yeah, a little bit of salt and sugar, like, into the water, just a little bit, not too much, but that alone, if people are fasting, that can be helpful. It's just something. It could be a powder drink. It could be something that's not super caloric, and that's a whole nother, episode, or a dietitian talking about the breakdown of, carbs and all that, like what kind of fuel, but at least the basics of hydration, and knowing we've been around for thousands and thousands of years with just water. We don't really need more than that. But it could be helpful to try something more. But for me, I don't like just plain water unless I'm exercising. So I put stuff in it just to try to make it taste a little bit better. But I've tried different things over time, but I've not found any that are better than the other. And everybody's different.
Okay. No, that's good. If anything, nowadays, now they already know the importance. You can just go on Google, go on YouTube and try to find specifics about that, but you already told us how important that is, so I think that's guiding them to the right direction as well. Now, when it comes to overuse injury, what are the warning signs of an overuse injury?
So, like, let's go with a knee, for example, like a typical overuse, not a structural injury, but just being on it a lot. Think of it like a deep bruise on the back of the kneecap. Some signs are like during warm up, sometimes you don't feel great while you're warming up. Maybe you were at school all day, you sat, and then you go drive for a while, and you get out of the car, and now my knee's kind of achy. But then as you get warming up, as you get moving, it feels better. If something's overused or like a bruise, the more you get moving, the more you use it, it doesn't really start to feel better. Like it still feels kind of compromised. And also, if you, like, after you're done with a game, like there's a normal amount of time of soreness. Like we all know what that feels like, normal soreness, like a day, 2 days at the most. But when things are kind of lingering on longer than that 1 to 2 day time frame, and if you're feeling it throughout the day, like even at rest, like a sign that something is probably overused. If I'm just not even using my knee and I can feel it, it feels like it's throbbing or stiff or swollen. Those are all signs of a typical kind of overuse where it's nothing structurally wrong. It's just like a bruise, think of it like that, where it's getting close to that point of just of too much. But usually if I have people come in and we look at like, what's your typical day and your week like? And last thing we don't think about either is that we use our legs for transportation, just from get to point A to point B.
Right.
And so if we're trying to heal something, or an elbow is very different than a knee. I can kind of baby my elbow for a day or two to let it calm down, but I need my knees for walking and getting up and down from the ground. So it can take a lot longer to heal ankles, knees, hips. And so looking at what's the training like? What's the game situation like? What do you do outside of sports? Are you playing basketball with your friends? Are you running? Like, some people don't realize, that is stressing, even though it's not exercise. Maybe they enjoy it. Maybe they're walking to school a couple miles. Like, those are taking stairs all the time. But we can usually like take an objective view, like a third person, just put it all on paper and present it back to them and see where is this going on? Where are we getting too much? Because the body can adapt to about anything. It just needs the right amount of time and recovery. If it doesn't get the recovery, that's where the magic happens. If you just keep breaking it down, it doesn't get that chance to heal and to evolve and to adapt. So that's why, we don't strength train every single day hard. We need recovery. That's where the magic happens. So a lot of the overuse stuff is just trying to pack too much stuff in, or not separating out, thinking things on a broader picture scale of like a year or a season, like maybe in season, and we have a couple matches coming up, and this week I'm not trying to get stronger, I'm not trying to get faster, maybe I'm working on more technical or some agility work, but now's not the time to really break my body down before a big event where I need it. So it's kind of thinking on a programming standpoint, a big picture standpoint, and off season is where you can really load and stress the body a lot more, but there's a time and a place for it.
I see. So you don't necessarily tell your athletes to stop completely. You just kind of decrease the amount of activities that they're doing that's causing the overuse.
I try to intervene the least amount. What's the least amount that we can get you to slow down that's going to have the maximum benefit? And so it depends on the sport, the situation. I think of it like, all right, we've got a budget this week. You've got so many dollars you can spend. Pick and choose where you spend those. I don't want you to spend them all at one point. So we know you got a game coming up. We know we can't change that. That's fixed income. That's something that we're going to fix spending. Now, these other times, this is where we can control. So I always try to, before just completely shutting somebody down, if I do shut somebody down, we have to make a darn good reason that is what their body needs, because too much time being sedentary, inactive, it does more harm than good. So that's where the fine line is. If you immobilize something, an ankle or a knee, even 2 days longer than it really needs, a day of immobilization, you can lose up to a week of strength.
Wow.
So just making sure that if you are shutting someone down, what does that look like? Does that mean doing absolutely nothing? Does that mean let's take some of the impact out? Let's not jump. Let's not cut. Let's maybe avoid side-to-side movements for a period of time. Let's stick to forward back. Let's maybe stick to your body weight for some time and not overload it with extra weights on top of that. But just, it's all force mitigation, and always just thinking the body can heal. It just has to be allowed to do that. And what kind of environment is this person living in? What's their sport? What's their daily activity look like? What can we change? What can we not change? And trying to just set them up for understanding that and budgeting their time and budgeting their load to allow them to heal and to adapt.
Yeah, no, that's good, because I think, especially when it comes to overuse, people already, think that, okay, if I'm overusing, I have to shut myself down, but that's not what you're saying, which is just kind of mitigating, seeing what's, what can I spend, right? The budgeting and no, I like that. I like that a lot. You mentioned recovery too. When it comes to recovery, what do you tell your athletes when it comes to that? Do you guys talk about sleep, or it goes back to the hydration and nutrition, or if it's less activity? What are usually the talks that you have with them regarding recovery?
Yeah, I think it definitely takes a team or a village, and that's why like we are the movement people, and there's so many things you could focus on and talk about. It can be overwhelming, and that's why having different people on the team to try to help with that, and why if they're listening to this, then they're driven and they're taking ownership, which needs to happen for people to really make those kind of changes, because you can't have a coach for every single aspect, every part of your day. But as far as my world with movement, that's what I'm really mainly dealing with. If it's a sleep stuff, all that stuff, yes, it's absolutely important. But where my expertise and time lies into is more the kind of physical recovery. And that's where it's like planning things out the day after an event or a long run, a race, if it's my runners, or a sporting event. Like that next day, what that should look like for you is recovery. It's maybe wearing the slip-ons or sliders or Crocs around the house, just a cushion environment for your foot to take some of the pressure away. Maybe it's a little less time on your feet. Maybe it's just letting things heal and try not to make it too complicated. Just try not to use it, minimize being on your feet. And the day afterwards isn't a time to strengthen, isn't a time to go for a run. It's just thinking, all right, what did I put my body through? I need at least 2 times that to recover. It depends on the person, but some people can get away with just 1 full day of recovery. Some people need 2, but it just depends on the person. And there's active recovery where people are still moving, but they're not like pushing themselves. I think it's thinking from a big picture standpoint. Am I trying to evolve and increase my strength, increase my speed? Am I trying to maintain, or am I trying to heal? It depends on what time during the week or events that falls on. That can help to kind of guide it a little bit more. Thinking the day after a game isn't the time to try to get stronger, isn't the trying to try to get stronger. It's the time to heal and to recover. And if I let that happen, as a result, I will be stronger, I will be faster, if we allow the recovery, the adaptation to happen, and not just keep breaking it down.
Yeah, and that's a good reminder too, because it is, at the end of the day, we're right. That's what sports do. It's a breakdown of the body. That's why injuries happen. You're trying to reach that tipping point, right before you're extremely fatigued, to reach and improve performance. It's a good reminder, because there's nothing to be gained, right? The day before a race, the day before a game. Then once you're done with that, the next, few days as well, it's time to kind of relax and let the body recover. It's just a good reminder. Yeah, let's talk about, you are at this point, you're to me, you're the number one expert in running mechanics, right? You have over 100,000 followers on Instagram, and Learn to Run. For everyone listening, watching, go follow Matt Minard on Instagram, Learn to Run. Great content. And even though we're going to be talking about running specifically now, there's a lot for you soccer players to learn from, because we run. It's change of direction running. It doesn't matter. We run. So tell us a little bit more. How did that start with you? Why are you so passionate about running specifically?
Yeah, good question. I think for me, most people run when they're younger for punishment or for sport. Nobody likes it, but then I think there becomes a point in everybody's life where they're not challenged with as much stuff. And it's a good outlet, physical exertion outlet for mentally, for physically. I personally started doing it just to lose some weight, just because I was a thicker, heavier guy. And what's kept me around is the mental benefits. And I think what makes me really passionate about it is that I know what movement does for me, what running can do for people. And if they are injured and they can't do that, how that can dramatically affect their life. That's why I'm really passionate about making sure people, if they want to run, if they don't want to run, that's fine. You find a way, whatever. But if you do, I want to make sure you're doing it smarter, safer, faster, and just not getting injured. But to me, it's just, I feel like everybody should have some kind of a physical outlet that can also be mental health too. But it's amazing how many things could be fixed with just a long walk or a run as a part of their routine. So running itself, I've made it easier on myself. I made myself as efficient as possible, not wasting any energy. I'm making sure when I'm moving forward, I'm not doing extra work that I don't need to. And from a physical therapist standpoint, I like that because it lowers your chance of injury. But from a performance standpoint, people like, well, then you could run faster. You could exert that same effort, but actually make yourself faster, or you could just take less stress and keep the same pace. So they're both sides of the same coin. It's just, are we looking to not get injured? Or are you looking to improve yourself? But running is just one of those fundamental things where everybody should be able to do it, but doesn't mean that they can do it efficiently. And I've kind of whittled it down to, all right, what is the most important? How can I transfer these skills as quickly as possible to people? That way the injury risk isn't 80 to 90% a year. People are getting injured from trying to do something where they don't need a whole lot of money. They just need their body and just to move. So that's kind of what kind of keeps me moving in the direction of working with runners. There's a huge need out there.
Yeah.
And I love movement and teaching movement as well.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because running, it's right. It is the easiest, right? If not, yeah, I think it is the easiest sport out there because you can just, put your shoes on and take off, right? But I don't think people recognize how much damage running can cause if you're not ready to sustain, the load of running as well. For you mentioned running efficiently. What are things that people are doing that's making them run not as efficient as you would like?
There's three things. One is arm swing. The arms, ideally, they're moving reciprocally forward and back. They're in sync with the legs. They're helping the legs move forward and back. If the arms aren't helping, then they're making it harder for the legs to have to work. So making sure someone's arms are in sync forward and back, reciprocal with their legs. The other is leaning. When I'm standing still upright, my weight is kind of evenly distributed across my arches. But when we start to move forward, we want to run, we need to shift that weight forward within our base of support and maintain it there. Because what happens if we don't lean and we're moving forward, but we're staying vertical or we're leaning back, if someone looks like they're slowing down or braking, then they are. And so by teaching that lean, making sure someone has an appropriate relationship between where their body is and where the ground is, and the landing will kind of take care of itself if they have that appropriate forward lean. So arm swing, the leaning, and the third is the gliding, the leaving the ground and moving horizontal and not leaving the ground and going up and forward. And that's teaching people to not push the ground down and back, but just purely pushing the ground backwards to move purely forward. And that is a learned skill. And that's where longer endurance running it's a lot more important for long distances than it is short distances. You can get away with a lot of stuff for a short distance, but for long distance training, whether it's for off season or weight or whatever, just cardio, learning how to lean forward, leave the ground, move horizontally, and arms are just lightly hanging down, syncing up with the legs. Those are the three things that I find if you can work on those, everything else will fall into place.
Okay, so since you mentioned three, right? So number one, arm swing. Number two, that lean forward. Number three, gliding, not going up and down as much. You're going forward, right? I'm a runner. I'm struggling, right? I love running, but I keep getting injured. I may be having one of these three that's wrong, or maybe two, or all of them, right? How long does that take you if I go see you for you to teach me in the clinic with you, or let's say an online coaching call with you, for me to grasp that information and be able to run outside, maintaining everything that you told me?
I know, not the sexy answer, but it depends. Everybody is different, but I've had it be as quick as within a session of us in person together over ground, 20, 30 minutes. I've had it take weeks. I've had some people just don't get it, and some people don't need to, and that's okay. If someone is training appropriately and not overdoing it, they don't want to get faster and they're just trying to get out there and move, then that's okay too. But yeah, I would say it's something that can be done, but it has to be learned. You can't learn Spanish just going to sleep and listening to a soundtrack. Like, it takes work. You actually have to put work into it. So no matter who you are, it's going to take work. And that's where I find it fun of how do people learn? Some people are visual learners. Some people are auditory learners. Some people learn by doing. Some people learn by mimicking. So I have different teaching strategies that I use for different people. But I've been doing it long enough, and I pick up on ways where I'm just driving and I just glance just a second and look at somebody and can already kind of know,
oh my God,
all right, they're bounding, they're braking, but just from pattern recognition. But you have to have some kind of a strategic system or classification for that. And takes time. But yeah, you can pick up pretty quick. But I would say one thing that everyone could kind of work on or look at is looking at something eye level in the distance. If they're on a treadmill, if they're outside, looking at something eye level and seeing how much is it moving up and down in their vision. Ideally, it's not moving up and down a whole lot. If it's moving up and down a lot, they're moving up and down a lot. They're jumping, they're leaving the ground, they're moving vertical. And the cue that's been most effective for most people is imagine your head is just floating in space. I want you to move forward in such a way that's like your head is just gliding. It's just floating. It just stays level. And naturally what will happen is people will start to kind of figure that out of, all right, pushing back, not down, not jumping. They start to create it more of a hip strategy to propel themselves forward versus a knee strategy and propelling themselves up and forward.
That's awesome. So yeah, for people they're listening and watching right now, because that does translate to soccer as well, right? You need to be a good runner, even though, like we've talked about, it's change of direction. But at some point when you're taking the ball on, you're actually running straight. So the better your mechanics, the better your speed, and it's better for you as a soccer player as well. For people listening and watching right now, what is the process of them getting in contact with you, or if you have anything that you offer, like an online coaching class, how does that work?
So truthfully, the way that I set it up is online, where you don't need me. Like, I'm a full-time physical therapist. I did take a year off of patient care to kind of build an online presence, to try to make resources for people that we didn't have to be together, didn't have to be in person. So I have it set up in such a way where I've got like a mechanics membership, where I have teaching those same 3 skills, just presented differently, depends on what kind of a learner you are. And so I do have like an online course that's step-by-step, where it feels like I'm there with you, where the videos are instructive. All right, I do this, watch. Okay, now you do it. Got it. And we kind of move on. So it's like an instruction manual for it, step-by-step, interactive online. I have a lot of people, just the free resources, just YouTube, my Instagram. I don't do the podcast as much anymore, but I have 30 some episodes on there that are up, that I've had a lot of really good feedback. What keeps me doing is people have said, hey, you've helped tremendously, and they don't even need to have anything formal. And that's kind of the way that I want it to be, is how can I get this information out to the most amount of people, is having resources available. So, but you got to be willing to learn and to put in the work. But my goal is someday I want to have other clone this knowledge and give this system to other clinicians that can work with people one-on-one, because nothing does replace one-on-one, but not everybody has the means to be able to do that. So in the meantime, it's a good option. So Instagram, YouTube, podcast, Learn to Run, and then I do have like a digital online store that has courses, step-by-step courses for teaching mechanics as well.
Okay, so we'll make sure to plug those in the description below. Your Instagram, your YouTube, your podcast, and also your website with the online store, in case people want to check them out, and to make it easier for them as well. Because I really like that idea of not needing you physically, even though you just said that nothing replaces that physical, like one-on-one, but it is a resource. If there's people looking to do this, from a different country or far away from where you are, it's a great way to be able to get that course, that online course, and learn. And, like you said, if you're willing to do the work, you're going to learn and you're going to improve. Going back to the three strategies, right? How much does the level of strength play a role in one, helping them achieve the three strategies that you're providing them, but two, in preventing injuries with runners?
Yeah, it's a good question. I kind of separate out into three separate categories of teaching movements or movement in general. We have technique, just the way that someone's moving, just how they're doing it. Then there's strength, and then there's mobility. So I find when teaching, I usually try to teach the mechanics first. Oh, you just haven't learned how to efficiently move forward yet. You haven't learned how to relax your arms, let them move with your legs. You haven't learned to allow your weight to shift forward. You're not going to fall. We want to control that. That's okay. And how to learn how to propel. Most of the time, it's not a strength issue. Most people have the amount of strength that they need to support themselves up. Just if they can walk around, if they can stand, most people do have the strength. And what I teach of moving horizontal, you don't need a whole lot of strength. If someone is bounding and jumping, yeah, you need more strength, but that's why their injury risk is so high and knee pain is so prevalent. So as far as technique wise, mobilities, does somebody have the range of motion or not have the available range of motion? It's not unheard of, but the one that's probably the most common I would have is ankle dorsiflexion, or someone's ability to fold their ankles or their calf tightness. If someone is really restricted with that folding of their ankles, then that can affect their stride, their squatting, their running. So I have had sometimes where it's not a technique thing, they're getting it, it's not a strength thing, it's just a range of motion issue, but it's a lot less common than you would think. It's most often learning the technique of it, how you move, how you kick a soccer ball, not just strength training and having the muscles and the velocity, like just the technique of it, the movement pattern. Teaching that comes to movement in addition to strength, in addition to range of motion.
Interesting. It's interesting that you're saying that, because I did listen to one of your podcast episodes, and it was about hip drop in runners. Most people think it is related to their strength, but the research that you talked through and explained was that it wasn't related to strength. It was, going back to what you just told us, technique. Once they cleaned up technique, they did improve their strength. Nothing changed with the hip drop. Once they changed the technique, now there's no more hip strength. So I thought that episode was really interesting, because every time I hear or I see anything related to hip drop with runners, most people just talk about that, strength kind of activation piece, and not so much on the technique.
Yeah, that's I'd like to think it's just we're still learning of all this stuff and how we rehab and the body, but I think that's still it's an old school thought, and for people that maybe don't have a whole lot of experience with working with people is, okay, something is weak, it just must need to be strengthened. That must be the whole purpose. But sometimes pain causes weakness, and we have to address what's causing the pain in the first place. So it's not just, oh, you're weak, you just need to strengthen more, that's why this happened. Sometimes there's something else that's causing the pain. But the body has these patterns of movement, and you would think, oh, the hip's dropping, well, what controls that? The glute med. Well, it must just be a strength thing. Let's strengthen that and see what happens. And so it sounds good in theory, but it just doesn't really play out in the real world. Can it help to strengthen? Yeah, but is it directly going to help? A lot of times not. So it is more of just a technique issue as far as movement goes. But yeah, a lot of times it's strengthening can never usually make anything worse. It's almost always helpful, but it's not always the answer. It's not always like, oh, if you just strengthen, then all these problems will go away. A lot of them will, but there's still some that are a little bit more specific. And those are the harder things because they're more tailored, they're more specific. It's easier just to say, hey, just strengthen this and do these. But it's a whole nother thing to teach you how to move in a certain way or how to control your pelvis through space.
That's so, yeah. No, as you're telling me this, I'm thinking about it in soccer as well, because that's true. like you can get two players, one extremely strong, the other one not as strong. Let's say the kicking the ball as hard as possible. It's not so much your strength, it's your technique. If the strong guy does not have the technique to kick the ball, he's not going to be able to add as much power as the guy with the technique will. So yeah, that's a good way to
look at like baseball players. I remember working out with people, and I used to be really into weightlifting back in the day, and I was stronger than a lot of people, and they could hit all these people because they were scrawny. They could hit it further than me because they had the technique. They knew how to move. Like, I mean, if that was the case, every bodybuilder, every power lifter would be good at running. If it's a strength issue, well, it's not. They're strong as can be. It's more of a technique and moving their body through space with sports. So.
That's really good for people to know. Yeah, the strength will definitely help. It's good. It's beneficial, right. But it's not the answer of everything.
Right.
Matt, going back to soccer, if you could give one piece of advice to a young soccer player looking to stay, healthy and improve their game, what would it be?
I would say it would be that kind of what they're doing, listening to this, just learning about their body, learning about recovery, learning about movement. And that doesn't have to be anything like crazy specific, but just having an idea for what signs that they're experiencing and what they might need to do about it. Meaning if they are being overused or overworked, maybe like what are some of those signs of that? But I think it's just having the goal of asking yourself, depends on different seasons, what's my goal right now? What's my focus? All right, what time of the year is it? School, not school? All right, let's build a plan or think about it from that standpoint. And that focus will change at different points of the year, but just moving with the purpose, training with the purpose, just having some kind of a purpose or a reason, or which helps with direction and knowing what to do. So I guess that's what I would say is learning the body, learning to know your body as much as possible, and moving with a purpose.
Good. And I don't think we mentioned this off camera. We talked, not today, a while back. You did tell me that you've played soccer before. Share a little bit. Yeah.
I was travel baseball and travel soccer, and then it came to a point where I had to make a decision from traveling standpoint, and I was definitely a lot better at baseball than I was at soccer. But yeah, I played until I was like 14 years old, and I'm from Toledo, Ohio, and there was a good amount of soccer up there. And I started playing when I was 5 or 6, and when my first job was reffing soccer.
Oh wow!
It was terrible. Parents were nuts. I was like 13 years old, and these parents were like chewing my head off. But it just was a good sport that a lot of people played that got people moving. But yeah, it was fun. I like playing FIFA. I like watching.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge sports fan in general, just because I like doing stuff. So I don't really follow any sports that closely. But as far as sports go, it is fun to watch. And we do have a professional team in Charlotte, North Carolina now that I've been wanting to go to a game, and just getting more interested in it. But yeah, I played until I wasn't good enough to keep playing anymore, and then I switched to baseball.
Yeah, no, it's funny that you're saying that. I talk about this all the time on the podcast. It's the way the system here is I personally like it, but like you just told me, you got to a point that you're playing 2 sports. You realize that you're not so good at soccer. You just decided to go with baseball because you're much better. Imagine how many times that happens with a lot of athletes. Because here we do have the ability to play several sports throughout the year at a high level with good infrastructure, and then you can pick and choose. And I'm pretty sure that playing different sports, they all help in some way in each of those sports, right? Let's say basketball with baseball, that's a good combo. Track, soccer, like that's a good combo. So it's interesting to me because I come from a country that you only have soccer to play. That's all you do. So I think that, that's the reason why I think that we produce a lot of great soccer players every year. You see a lot of them coming out of Brazil playing at Premier League or La Liga or Ligue 1 or all the biggest, highest level leagues. But it's interesting. It's interesting to see. It's going to be interesting for my son to have the ability to play several sports and then find the one that he's best at.
Yeah.
Or, if he doesn't like any sports, if he likes music, totally fine as well. But I always bring that up because it's a massive difference. And I don't even think that it's just Brazil and US. I think it's US and all the other countries.
Yeah.
Which is
That's what it seems like to me. It's crazy how it's not as popular here, but in other countries, that's the only thing. And so it is so, and the NFL here is so big. In other countries, they don't even have that.
Yeah.
So it is fascinating to think about and to see the differences. But yeah, it's good to give it some choice. And who knows, you could have been like the next Michael Jordan. If you would have had a basketball at a young age, who knows? You could be out there right now dunking on people. So
5'8".
I'm with you.
5'8".
Yeah.
5'8".
And that was my other thing is I'm not really built for soccer. I'm like 6'2", 210 pounds. I wasn't quick. I was never the fastest, but yeah, some of the best soccer players we get in here are quick. They are shorter, they are lean, and they move well. So yeah, I think there's a place for all of us.
Yeah, no, I think I would love to do track. I love sprinting, and it's part of my training as well. Nowadays I do hundreds and I love it. I got so into it that I got, the proper shoes for it with the little spikes in them. Yeah, once I get into something, I go extremely deep, and it takes my wife to snap me out of it. Like, hey, it's too much. Stop that.
Yeah.
So
I'm the same way.
Yeah. So Matt, is there anything else you'd like to share that we haven't discussed?
No, I don't think so. I think that was a good mix of just, preventative and rehab versus performance and injury and movement and running. And yeah, I think that was really good. I enjoyed it.
Cool. So we have this question that we ask every guest on the podcast at the end of the episode. Tell us a game changer moment in your life and why.
Game changer moment. I would say the only thing that comes to mind, and I don't know if this is your exact definition of a game changer, but something that was very influential was I used to also coach at Orange Theory, which is like a fitness studio. And I just by some chance ended up going to a different one. And long story short, that's how I ended up meeting my current wife and got married a couple months ago and going on a honeymoon next week. I'm just so grateful for her. And she is that voice for me of reason when I'm overdoing something or going crazy. So I think she's my biggest game changer, and I'm just really, really grateful for her.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. Now that is exactly what I was looking for. It's whatever is a game changer in your life and the reason why. And that's beautiful. I would say that's mine too. It's needed. And congrats on getting married. Now go on a honeymoon, enjoy as much as possible. And yeah, hey, we've mentioned this here before, but just repeat that again. Where can people find you?
Sure. So Learn to Run. And the 2 is like a number 2. Learn number 2 run. I think on Instagram, the Learn to Run was taken. So it's learn.to.run, but it's gotten big enough now where if you just put Learn to Run, it will come up as one of the top ones. And yeah, going from there, I have all my links on my Instagram as far as the YouTube, the podcast, Learn to Run 101. We'll put that in the show notes too. That's the digital kind of online store. But yeah.
Cool. Hey, Matt, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time for sharing everything you just did with us. Because I think it's needed, for the soccer players, everything we talked about running as well, that could translate into soccer players as well. And I really appreciate you. Thank you for joining the podcast.
Yeah, I'm happy to. It's nice running is just one small online. It's a big portion of what I do, but 99% of my days are working with people and athletes. And it's nice to kind of share and talk about some of the other stuff too. So I really appreciate you having me on.
Cool. Thank you.